Shall we start the event, sir?
We will.
Nitya?
Oh,
One minute, Nitya, record this. I'll start recording as well.
okay. Okay, Alva.
Yeah, start.
Okay. Shall we start, sir?
We will start.
Okay, sir. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on From Idea to Data, Navigating the Basics of Research. I'm Nitya Kirti, PhD Research Scholar, and I will be your host today. Today, we are diving into the essential steps of research from conceptualizing the data to gathering and analyzing the data. Whether you are a beginner or looking to refine your skills, this webinar will provide a valuable insights. I would like to invite our resource person today, Dr. V.T. Swaminathan, sir, retired professor from the Department of Psychology, University of Madras, has been actively engaged in research since 1980. With BA, MA, MPhil, and PhD in psychology, he has been mainly rendering service as a teacher and researcher besides being a psychologist on honorary basis. At present, he is honorary chief mentor in Tunai, a NGO for maternal mental health, providing professional inputs for research activities across the state of Tamil Nadu. On an honorary basis, he serves as advisory for the academic activities of Safeguard Family Health Private Limited, Chennai. He officially as the Director of Academic Staff College and University Students Advisory Bureau and University Center for International Relations. More than 50 research articles have been published in national and international journals, besides two textbooks in psychology and 16 articles on various aspects of psychology in Tamil Encyclopedia compiled by Tamil University in Tanjavur. He has successfully completed UGC sponsored research projects adopting multidisciplinary approach. So far, 22 and 42 research scholars have been successfully guided for PhD and MPhil degrees respectively. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, young scholar Nitya Kirti and Sam, and respected Dr. Shanti, President, Head of the Department of Commerce, the University of Madras, my alma mater. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am, for spending, an hour.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot, ma'am. And without wasting further, time, let me move on to the presentation, because I want participants to interact as much as possible. Perhaps I wish to give them half an hour or so that the session will come to a successful end at 8 o'clock this evening. So I request either Nitya or Sam to share the screen. In fact, I should give the credit to Dr. Shanti ma'am for coming out with a brilliant topic, which is pretty close to my heart, because research is a never-ending process, and the trends are changing now. And as we go ahead with this slide presentation, perhaps I wish to stop at 7:30 or so, within half an hour or within less than half an hour, maybe around 7:25 or 7:30. I would like to complete my presentation, and the rest of the time we will spend for interaction. So this is the title, From Idea to Data, Navigating the Basics of Research. Next slide, please. In fact, when we start our research work, whether it is a degree-oriented research or research for the sake of research, we need to bear three basic questions in mind. Number one, what is it that we are going to investigate? Then why are we going to investigate? Then how we are going to investigate. So the what aspect is nothing but the conceptual aspect. Basic concepts will get covered in what aspect, and why is why will deal with the purpose or utility of our research work. We are not doing it just to while away the time. In fact, curiosity drives us to explore the unexplored area, which is quite abundant. In fact, in Tamil we say, I'll translate this into English. கற்றது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாது உலகளவு. So those who know Tamil, I think, will be able to decipher what I have said in Tamil. But brief translation of that is that whatever we have learned is so little that we need to keep learning, mainly by research, almost every day, day in and day out. We'll have to keep researching lot of things which require a thorough investigation. So the utility is very much essential. Whatever we do definitely will have an application value, which is what covered in the why aspect, and how obviously will focus on the methodology. Next slide. I suppose I am clear. Now let me move on to the what aspect. From where do we draw the concepts? So if I am going to say what is associated with the conceptual aspect, concepts do not appear in vacuum. Definitely we get to know about concepts through various ways, and of course our teachers are there to tell us about various concepts in the lecture hall, in and off the lecture hall. But more than that, the supplementary measure will always come from the resources like textbooks, journals, etc. And concepts are drawn mainly from the well-established theories or models, which are being tested time and again by various means. And these theories and models are built on intense research outputs. Theories, for that matter, even models, are not built overnight. Just as how we say Rome was not built in a day, so is each and every theory. Whatever be the field of specialization, every specialization, every branch of knowledge will have many number of theories. So in theories, what do? In fact, in logic, we talk about two types of reasoning. One is inductive reasoning and the other one is deductive reasoning. Induction means from specific to general. From various research investigations, we try to generalize, and that generalized view is what we call a theory. And this process is induction. Whereas the reverse is true for research investigation, because from general we extract concepts and try to go still more deep into each and every concept. So it is from general to specific, and this process is called deduction. So previous research studies, which obviously stem from some of the well-established theories. So within a theoretical framework, all research studies need to be done. Next slide. So I suppose you understand from where the concepts originate. They don't originate just in vacuum. They're all the outputs of various research studies which are being generalized to make a viewpoint, a theoretical viewpoint. All right. Next slide is about utility. In fact, now the recent trend is to concentrate more on applied research. Seldom, as far as my knowledge goes, very little basic research is done. Because many accuse the academicians, particularly the taxpayers, say that whatever research that you do does not percolate down. It is there only in the education institution, either in the library or in the laboratory. So you need to take the concept from library to land, from laboratory to land. And this approach is called ivory tower approach. All right. But of course, basic research has its own benefits because it strengthens the substratum of the existing theoretical models. So the theories become stronger and stronger by carrying out basic research. But these days, people want applied research. One solid example, of course, I don't want to open any Pandora's box, but at the same time, all of us assume that we are out of the COVID danger. When the COVID was in its full bloom, in fact, we started running helter-skelter to save ourselves. And medical scientists, had to burn their midnight oil, and they tried to, produce vaccine. And some vaccines were brought out because the situation demanded that those vaccines need to be immediately administered to save further lives. But unfortunately, now some speculations are going on saying that lot of adverse effects are being reported of some of these vaccines. And in fact, I would say that we had to rush with the vaccines to save human lives, and we had no other option but to market the vaccine. So this is a typical negative side of applied research. We will have to wait and see. In fact, at the end of the session, I'll say, if not at the end of the session, definitely somewhere in the middle also, always we need to carry out research on longitudinal basis. Over a period of time, we'll have to keep testing the material again and again so that we become sure of the results. Then only I think the beauty of applied research will be felt by every one of us. So it provides practical tips for effective living because of its field approach. I think, should there be any question, I will take those questions at the end of the session, during the session. Let me move on to the next slide. So the purposes are two. One, you contribute to basic research, or you contribute to applied research. Now, the most important question we have taken up, namely the how aspect. I made a very superficial presentation regarding what, and equally superficial was why, but I cannot afford to make a superficial presentation of how. The methodology is the most important aspect of any research. More than what you do, how you do is very important. And as far as behavioral sciences are concerned, social sciences or behavioral sciences, whatever be the thing, there are two basic approaches. One of them is quantitative approach and the other one is qualitative. In fact, they are not diametrically opposite. They are actually complementary. Quantitative methods are empirical in nature, whereas qualitative methods are rational. You put on your thinking cap and you analyze the data threadbare. You look into each and every observation with very little quantification. Of course, you cannot avoid numbers, but there is a world beyond numbers also. So with minimum usage of numbers, you go about doing qualitative research, but predominantly we deal with numbers in the other approach, namely quantitative. In fact, I feel more comfortable with quantitative because when you have numbers in front of you, you become more confident of what you communicate. All right, because numbers have their own advantages. Next slide, please. Next slide. Am I clear to all the listeners? If not all the listeners, some of you, let me make sure that no one is asleep.
Sir, it's clear, sir.
Are you all awake?
Yes,
It is
sir.
too early to sleep, but at the same time, if I'm going to keep talking, there is no guarantee that all of us need to be wide awake. One voice can represent the entire group. Are you all listening? Is my presentation clear to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. More than one voice I have got. The thing is now quantitative methodology. As I told you, I'll focus more on quantitative aspect rather than the qualitative aspect. And this process is called empirical. What I mean by empirical is that it is based on facts which are converted into figures. All right, we collect facts either from the laboratory, much less so from the library. But when we take the findings from lab or library to the field, definitely we will collect lot of facts, all of which will be converted into figures. This is what the quintessence of quantitative methodology. How do we begin the quantitative method? We begin with the critical analysis of secondary data, what we call the literature, research literature. The journey of a researcher commences with a thorough review of existing literature. All right. In fact, I would always say you have to make a passing reference, if not direct reference, to some of the landmark research studies. Though many research scholars, if not all research scholars who are bent on doing serious research, will get to know the landmark research studies. But at the same time, some of the concepts which are brought out through those research studies definitely will have to find a place in your research publication. But people say that the last 5 years of research studies definitely will provide a very solid platform for you to proceed with the primary collection of primary data. So the empirical research process commences with review of literature. From review of literature, move on to the next phase, namely identification of problem and formulation of hypothesis. ROL expansion is review of literature. Next circle has got P and H. P stands for problem, that is research problem, and H stands for hypothesis. From there, we move on to RD, namely research design. Based on research design, we collect data by taking a sample, which we assume to be representative of the population. From the sampling, we move on to collection of data, and after collecting the data, we subject the data to a thorough analysis. Based on the analysis, we discuss the results, and the research is reported in the form of report writing, or W stands for report writing. And from the report, the next, the next journey will commence. Every research report will get added to the literature, and again, the same thing, will follow. Review of literature, followed by identification of problem and formulation of hypothesis, and then conceiving research design, based on which we go about sampling, and then from the sample we collect the data, and we analyze the data, interpret the data, discuss the data, draw conclusions, and the report is written based on the entire process. Next slide. Next slide. So review of literature is nothing but critical analysis. It is just not cataloging of studies. Be careful with plagiarism. And there are three types of research. One is exploratory research. The second one is confirmatory research. And the third one is replication. We identify the gaps which exist in the previous research studies, and we explore those gaps for which we need to formulate null hypothesis. Whereas if you have contradictory findings, we try to confirm which particular finding holds water. For this, we formulate alternate hypothesis, probably non-directional. And if you want to repeat and see for yourself whether the same data are being collected from the same findings or being obtained for generalizability, we go for directional hypothesis, which again is alternative to the null hypothesis. Next slide. Next slide. Research problem. So research problem is an interrogatory statement of relationship between two or more variables, and there are certain important criteria of a good research problem. Minimum two variables must be present. Then only you'll be able to investigate the relationship between the two. One of them is called X variable and the other one is called Y variable. X variable always is independent. Y variable is dependent. And problem statement should be stated in such a way that quantification is possible and should be precise. Next slide. For want of time, I am just rushing through. Next slide. There is only one difference between hypothesis and problem. If problem is an interrogative statement, hypothesis is a conjectural statement. Conjecture means assumption. Based on certain assumptions, you try to state the relationship between two or more variables, and whatever criteria that I meant for research problem, will hold water even for a healthy hypothesis. Over and above those three criteria, you have one more criterion, namely, there should not be any contradiction among the hypotheses. Next slide. I suppose you know the difference between singular and plural forms of hypothesis. Singular is IS, plural is ES. Why I am saying this is because when you send your thesis abroad, some of the foreign examiners are so meticulous in evaluating your thesis, and they point out all these mistakes. So please avoid all these simple mistakes. Research design is a plan, structure, and strategy of investigation which is conceived with two purposes. The first purpose is to answer questions that is raised in the research problem. Is X related to Y? Is the research question to which you have to provide an answer, empirical answer, based on empirical method, a definite answer, for which you come out with a conjectural statement earlier, you test that hypothesis. All right. So the first purpose is to answer the question that is raised in the research problem. Second purpose is more important than the first one, namely, you have to control variance. I'll tell you what variance is in the next slide. And there are three types of basic research designs. One is called ex post facto, and its antonym is experimental design. In ex post facto research, you take up independent variables which are not at all experimentally manipulable. For example, gender. Gender is something that is not, possible for you to manipulate. You cannot make a man, a woman. Of course, these days, medical fraternity will definitely counter me with a lot of inconvenient questions. I need to be very careful because you can change the gender at any will, but without that intervention, men are men, women are women. Third gender is third gender. So gender is one variable which is not experimentally manipulable, whereas certain independent variables are experimentally manipulable. For example, induction of anxiety and reduction of anxiety. If you are going to take anxiety as an independent variable, its impact on probably biased behavior. This is what actually, with due respect to all doctors, let me say one thing. Doctors frighten us when we go to any clinic. No, even small symptoms are magnified. So it is just not only the body that is affected, because of which you approach the doctor. They induce so much of anxiety in you, and anxiety is something which is manipulable, and they introduce the anxiety, whereas we psychologists, remove anxiety from the mind. So anxiety is a variable which can be, induced, or which can be reduced. Okay, so that becomes a part of experimental research. Second type of research design is cross-sectional versus longitudinal. Cross-sectional, at one point of time, you collect data and then you build your castle based on that data. Whereas longitudinal, as I told you in the beginning, over a period of time, repeatedly you collect data again and again from the same sample across various points of time, so that the data become more and more stable. So research design can be either cross-sectional nature or longitudinal nature. What happened to my slide? Suddenly it has disappeared. The third one is univariate versus multivariate. In univariate, you have only one variable on either side. You will have only one X variable and you will have only one Y variable. Whereas now research studies, are being done based on multivariate approach. You have more than one X variable and you try to find out the contribution of each of those X variables to Y, that is the dependent variable, or you take several Y variables and you try to see whether one particular independent variable is responsible for so many changes in so many variables. So in the earlier case, x1, x2, x3, up to a number of x variables to y, or you take only one x variable and see its impact on y1, y2, y3 up to yn. The third type of multivariate design will be umpteen number of x variables and equally umpteen number of y variables, and that will be mind-boggling. But thanks to statistical packages like SPSS, Listral, etc., Amos, SARS, etc., you have, multivariate designs of various types. Okay, next slide. Next slide. And I told you about variance. To control variance, variance is nothing but spread of scores around mean. I suppose those who have done statistics will know it is question of descriptive statistics. Standard deviation square is what we call variance. And there are three types of variance. One is called systematic variance. Second is called extraneous variance. The third one is called error variance. Systematic variance is true variance because you can predict the spread of scores. Either the scores will go up, or the scores will come down, or the scores will go towards left or towards left, right, etc. They are predictable. That's why it's called systematic variance. Any research design should be conceived in such a way that it should maximize systematic variance. Error variance is just opposite. It is unpredictable. Suddenly the scores will go up or will go down or will go towards right or left. If you plot the data on a graph, the moment of errors will be so unpredictable, will be so haphazard. You can see for yourself that errors should have crept in. That's why the moment of numbers is unpredictable. Extraneous variable, if you don't identify and control them, extraneous variables will join hands with the error and will maximize error. In order to minimize error, what you need to do is you have to identify the extraneous variable and you should control them. If the extraneous variables are controlled, they will start contributing to true variance. For want of time, I'm not able to give you any solid example, but please remember these three vital aspects. You'll have to conceive a research design in such a way that you maximize systematic variance, minimize error variance, and control extraneous variance. That's why it's called max min con principle. Maximize systematic variance, minimize error variance, and control extraneous variance. In fact, we don't use the word nullify. You cannot nullify error. It is next to impossible. Even if you assume that you have nullified error, what will happen is if you look at the denominator of any statistics, say for example, t-test, no, the numerator is mean difference. The denominator is standard error of mean difference. In correlation also, the numerator is covariance between the variables, whereas the denominator is the product of standard deviation. Standard deviation is a measure of error, all right? So the spread of scores. And you just assume if you succeed within inverted commas in reducing error variance almost to the point of zero, if denominator becomes zero, however big the numerator may be, how will the quotient be? Anything which is divided by zero will be zero. Anything which is multiplied by zero is zero. And if you are going to say my t value is zero, obviously it doesn't indicate any true difference between the conditions which are there in the experimental design. All right. Next slide. I suppose you have understood this important aspect of result design. And sources of error, as I told you, are many and varied. Just only 6 of them I have listed. One is failure to identify and control the extraneous variables. If extraneous variables are hidden, definitely they will contribute to the error. If sample is not representative of the population, definitely there will be a lot of errors in the data. And it is just not the question of variables and sample. You'll have to check the reliability and validity of the tools that you use for collection of data. And if tools are not at all standardized, automatically that will pave the way for errors. And if tools are okay, sample is okay, and you have made a wonderful attempt to identify and control extraneous variables, still errors can creep in. That's because of faulty administration of tools. Here only the question of expertise comes. This is my humble appeal to you. If you are going to carry out research involving psychology, please involve a psychologist to collect data for you. A non-psychologist, however brilliant they may be academically, if they are going to administer a psychological tool like anxiety or depression or motivation, any psychological variable, whether it is positive or negative, those tools must be administered, scored, interpreted only by a fully qualified psychologist. Just because all of us are called Dr. So-and-so because of PhD, we cannot assume that we are medical doctors. If any data are to be obtained about the biological aspect, particularly involving stethoscope, though you and I may know how to take BP, that too now electronic gadget has come, but it is better that those parameters are being measured or assessed by qualified professionals. All right. That is why errors come in, and defective scoring and wrong interpretation, all this contribute to error. Next slide. I think I'll be running short of time. And these are the methods by which you control extraneous variables, randomization, matching, elimination, statistics, design, etc., etc. Next slide. Already it is 7:40. Next slide. I suppose you know about two basic branches of sampling. One is called random sampling and the other one is called non-random sampling. This is something self-explanatory. Should there be any question, I'll take those questions. Next slide. Next slide. So these are the methods by which we collect data. First and foremost, observation. Observation forms an integral part of any data collection procedure. We are blessed with a pair of eyes, healthy pair of eyes. Make the best use, full use of your eyes, and move on to interview. Whatever data that you collect through observation will have to be supplemented by structured or semi-structured or unstructured interview, for which you make use of your mouth and the ears. Then the case study also can provide you with lot of details, and of course you can use standardized tools about which I have already told you earlier, and so many other methods are there for you to collect data. Next slide. Next slide. Data analysis. After collecting the data, you subject them to rigorous statistical analysis before you apply parametric statistics, which are more powerful than non-parametric. You have to verify three important assumptions. Number one, plot the data on a graph, see whether you get bell-shaped curve. Assumption of normality. If the distribution is going to be non-normal, please don't go anywhere near parametric statistics. So assumption of normality will have to be fulfilled. The condition will have to be fulfilled. Second condition is homogeneity of variance. If you have more than one condition, definitely you'll have more than one condition, more than one group, where the standard deviation square, what we call variance in one single word, that variance should not differ across conditions or across groups. And if there is going to be a significant difference in the variance between any two groups, that means heterogeneity. All right. So the variance must be homogeneous. Only when there is homogeneity of variance, you can go for parametric statistics. And the third assumption is regarding the nature of tool. It should be interval scale or should be ratio scale, neither nominal nor ordinal. If even one of these three assumptions is not adequately met, please don't take any risk of applying parametric statistics. Go for its equivalent non-parametric statistics, which are called distribution-free methods. Again, for want of time, I am not able to throw much light on this. Next slide. Next slide. Whatever research that you do will have to be reported formally in the form of thesis or in the form of journal articles. Unreported research is as bad as not doing research. Please don't stop with thesis writing or publication of journal articles. Convert them into popular articles so that any Tom, Dick, and Harry will get to know what you have done. All right. So report writing, I feel, is the most important aspect of research. Next slide. Next slide. So these are all the technical aspects of research. As a psychologist, I should throw some light on psychological factors. You should have curiosity for exploration. Be curious. Be creative. Sorry, twice it is repeated. The third one is critical thinking. It is wrong. Second one is creative thinking. The third one is critical thinking. You have to think creatively as well as critically. Please note the correction. The fourth one is communication. Fifth one is commitment. You should have a strong will to achieve what you want to achieve. That strong determination must be there. And always collaborative research is better, for which coordination is very important. And coordination, because gone are those days when we used to tighten our blinkers and you will sit in your department, do research only in the department. But now choice-based system is introduced at UG and also PG levels. The main purpose of introducing choice-based research design is to promote multidisciplinary research on the way to transdisciplinary research. Next slide. So what are the ultimate goals? One is for the mundane world, that is for career development, institutional development, national development, and of course you widen your horizon of knowledge. But the ultimate goal, something to do with spirituality, you move from falsehood to truth. Yeah, asatoma sadgamaya, from darkness to light, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, and of course from mortality to immortality, mrityoma amritam gamaya. In fact, I feel Abayar, Thiruvalluvar, Kalidasa, Tagore, Milton, Shakespeare, and all the rest of them are not dead and gone. They are still alive. They are alive through their exemplary, outputs in the form of Athichudi by Abayar, Thirukural by Thiruvalluvar, Kumara Sambhavam, and so many other things by Kalidasa, National Anthem by our Tagore, Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained by Milton, all 38 plays by Shakespeare, they are still being used. So when they are used, all the stalwarts are also still alive. That is why let us move from death to a state of deathless awareness, which comes in the form of all the stalwarts. Okay, the time now is 7:47. I think I have taken more than half an hour. I am really sorry for that. Next, the last slide, best wishes. Interaction now and forever. Please go back to the first slide so that everyone will see the email ID of myself. My email ID. Definitely 10 minutes are not enough for you to clarify all your doubts, but even then, some time is left for interaction. Please go ahead with the interaction.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful presentation. We will have a Q&A session now, so feel free to jot down your questions. You can use the chat box to reach out to our speaker.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, this is Preeti Rose, research scholar under Shanti ma'am.
Okay.
I have few questions for you, sir.
Yeah, please.
So regarding the sample size, what is the actual sample size we have to determine, sir, for writing any research paper?
Wonderful, wonderful. For field research, there is no thumb rule, but at the same time, if you want to apply multivariate, statistics, better, you have number of variables into 10 as your minimum sample size. If you have 10 variables, 10 into 10, 100. In fact, this is the simplest formula that anyone can use. Otherwise, you have umpteen number of formulae to draw sample from the population. And if you are strong in understanding or in deciphering each and every formula, then you better approach statistics department. But the most rudimentary way of answering your question is number of variables into 10 can be your sample size.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. What is the next question? Yeah.
So regarding the research problem, how should we actually arrive at the research problem, sir?
Yeah.
How do we identify it?
Yeah. Sam or Nitya, will you kindly go to that slide so that there will be visual aid also. In fact, when you do review, definitely you will be able to identify some gaps in the existing findings. And if you find any gap, that gap will have to be investigated. So that gap eventually becomes a research query.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Or you may not have gap at all. By gap, what I mean is what is true of American culture is what would have been reported by an American investigator. But in India, I think that research might not have been done, and you may not have sufficient information on the relationship between those two variables as far as Indian culture is concerned, because most of us do, culture oriented research, and that becomes a potential gap for you to investigate. All right. Or
Yes.
if you have any contradictory findings in the research literature, automatically you will be wondering which one is correct and which one is not correct. All right.
Yes.
If I am to give you any solid example, in fact, I had this dilemma way back in 1979 for my MA dissertation. I took up a very challenging research investigation on cigarette smokers, effects of cigarette smoking on psychological well-being. I'm making it very simple. The
Yes.
one American investigators said smokers are extroverts, whereas non-smokers are introverts. All right.
Yes.
Sorry, the British investigators said so, and they did not find any difference between smokers and non-smokers on emotional stability. But their counterparts in America came out with exactly the opposite findings. They did not find significant difference between smokers and non-smokers on extraversion dimension, that is on sociability. But they said smokers were more emotionally weak than the non-smokers. Smoking, actually weakens the emotionality. In fact, from India, I was wondering whether American investigators are right or British investigators are right. So immediately I took up that challenging investigation, and I upheld the findings of Americans. The sample that I collected from Chennai revealed smokers were significantly more emotionally unstable than the non-smokers. And they did not differ on sociability. Smokers and non-smokers were equally sociable. So this sort of contradictory findings will make you go ahead with a research problem, all right, which will be investigated through research design.
Okay, sir.
So it is called exploratory research. So you will have to go for null hypothesis.
Okay, sir. So this is
Okay.
one more doubt. I have recently sent my research papers to many journals, sir. And every time when I send a paper, I get a message from the journal stating that there is no novelty in my paper. And how do I rectify that issue, sir?
Exactly. What you should do is before you send your articles to those journals, you go through those journals, the back volumes, see how they report the findings. In fact, sorry, this is off the record, but anyway, my words are being recorded. I don't mind being recorded. Most of these international journals expect their studies being quoted in your research work, and then you be critical. That's why in my last slide, in the penultimate slide, I said you need to be critical and creative. It is not only the research studies which are being reported in that particular journal the last 5 years, you should quote them, but you need to be critical and you need to be creative. And when critical thinking and creative thinking go hand in hand, automatically you will be able to highlight the novelty, the difference between what you have done and what others had done earlier, and how you have extended the findings from wherever they were earlier to whatever you have got.
Okay, sir.
So that's why I said it is review. It is not cataloging of studies. You need to be very, very critical in analyzing the previous research studies. critical analysis is what we call review. It is just not mentioning of the names.
Okay, sir.
You do so, definitely your paper will be accepted.
Thank you so much, sir. My final doubt, sir.
Yeah.
Relating to model building, sir. Whenever we are building on a model, should we build our own model, sir, or should we build a model based on the previous studies?
The thing is, if it is going to be a previous study, well, I think it won't be a revised one. In fact, you yourself will have to come out with more than one model, because have you heard about path analysis, structural equation model?
Yes. Yes, sir.
In fact, you should go for more than one model, even if it is going to be built by you. The best fit, will be reported in your thesis. So
we can actually
model,
combine all those studies and build a new model, sir.
exactly. Again, it boils down to the fact of a thorough review. You have to analyze and synthesize. Analysis and synthesis will enable you to go for a fresh model, or perhaps a better model than what is in vogue.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
Sir, I have one more doubt, sir.
Yeah.
Why it is very important to see the variance in analysis, sir? Why we need to see the variance, sir?
Because variance alone will give you what the picture is all about. Because you convert the facts into figures, and the figures are nothing but numbers. You'll have a set of numbers, and you cannot take each and every data. You take a representative of that. And
Yes,
the
sir.
main representative is arithmetic mean. But arithmetic mean has got one inherent deficiency or weakness or demerit. It is influenced by the extreme values. So when you have a very wide range of scores, automatically you have so much of information in that. In fact, the more the variance, the more probability will be there for you to come out with some solid findings. That's why I know that variance will have to be segmented into true variance and error variance, and that in between comes extraneous variance. So variance is the heart of any research investigation.
Okay, sir. Okay, so I have one more doubt, sir.
Yeah.
I saw one research thesis in that she have taken 4 independent variable and 1 dependent variable. In that, only 2 independent variables are Likert scale and dependent variables are Likert scale, but other 2 independent variables are MCQs. MCQ questions. Is it okay to connect all MCQs and Likert scale to put the structural equation model? Is it correct, sir?
Yeah, good question. Probably you can very well get to know a better answer from your counterpart from statistics. But as far as my knowledge goes, there are types of structural equation model is built on regression principle. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Are you clear
Yes,
about this? And there are several types of regression. Linear regression, logistic regression, etc., etc. You cannot go for linear regression model because the data, as you very rightly say, 2 independent variables are based on Likert scale and the 2 are MCQ. In such a
Yes, sir.
scenario, you should go for logistics model, logistics regression.
Okay, sir.
And that logistic regression will give you, better coefficients than linear regression. Because logistic regression will definitely accommodate all these variations.
Okay, so logistic models means logistic is okay, or a structural equation is correct or not correct, sir?
Yeah, no, the thing is, the first step is to find out the path coefficients, which are nothing but the beta coefficients, all right, based on regression model. So you run logistic regression get to know the beta values and convert them into path values, path coefficients, and fit them into your path model or structural equation model. And apply chi-square to see whether the goodness of fit can be checked by the chi-square value. The best fit you can always take.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions from the participants?
Yeah, it is 8 o'clock. I think that must have put them off.
Okay.
Am I right? Am I right, Sam or Nitya?
Sir,
Yeah.
maybe so, but there is no more questions from our in our chat box as well.
Yeah.
So
I think if Dr.
participants, now the floor is open. So we can.
Shanti Madam permits, I think we can wind up the session. Can we?
So thank you very much, sir.
All right, ma'am. Thank you. Nice
Yeah.
interaction we had, though we had very little time for interaction.
Yeah, we learned many things from you. And I thought this experience, the newcomers, the budding research scholars, even the guides should benefit from this exposure. So that is why we thought we just arranged this particular meeting. And thank you for sharing your experience. And many meticulous questions have been also posed. And thank you.
That shows, madam, how well you have trained your students.
Yes, sir.
As the
Shall we
professor
go for
told the
a
students.
vote of thanks, sir?
Wait,
Yes,
sir,
ma'am.
something.
Sorry?
Sir is was about to say something.
Sorry, sir. You continue, sir.
No. The thing is, actually, I complimented Professor Shanti ma'am because the way she has trained or the way she has been training her students is something remarkable, because all the questions are pointed quite specific. That's why I was able to answer all of them. I guess I could convince them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Sam,
much.
I think, is coming out with a meaningful smile. I don't know what that smile tries to convey.
No, sir. I was happy.
Can I take it as a happy smile or a mischievous one?
Definitely, sir. It's a happy smile.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Sam. Just I wanted to pull your leg. Nothing more.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Nitya, you can go ahead with
Sure.
the program.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today, we have learned about the crucial steps in the research process from idea generation to data analysis. Our speaker provided practical tips and valuable knowledge to help us navigate our research journey. A big thank you to our speaker for sharing his experience and to all of you for participating. We hope you found the session informative and engaging. We will sharing the feedback link in the chat box, and stay tuned for our upcoming webinars on research, advanced research and the questionnaire design. Thank you once again for joining us. Have a great day and a happy researching. Thank you, sir.
Participants,
Thank
we
you,
have
sir. Thank
posted.
you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful things.
Welcome.
We have
I am
posted
writing something.
feedback form in the chat box. Kindly fill the feedback form. That will be useful to issue the participation certificate for this today's session. And we also make sure that this link will not be shared in our WhatsApp group, because this will be shared for the specifically for the participants who participated in this today's webinar. Okay, and you can also share watch this program in YouTube, and kindly stream to our YouTube channel and join and subscribe. Thank you so much. Good night. Have a wonderful day. Signing off. Thank you.
Google form not accepting this.
Not
Google
accepting,
form is not accepting the response.
Wait. Okay. Now try again, please. I've made it. Sorry. Nithi, try again now. Meanwhile, I'll end the streaming. Please. I'll end the streaming. I'll end the streaming.
It's open, Anna. It's open accepted.
Yeah.